College football is back, and we are recapping the biggest movers of their draft stock for week number 1. Let's jump right into this. This is not going to be in any particular order outside of being the stars of the week, stock up, duds of the week, and stock down. So, starting out with our number 1 star of the week, we have Jaheem Johnson. And guys, I have a whole list of a ton more players, 90, I think 96 to be exact. And if you guys want access to that full list, you guys get access to my valuations, my player rankings, and everything, including every single one of these players that I've ended up bringing in to stock up and stock down over on the Patreon. It's $5 a month, and you get extra long videos that end up describing everything that I talk about with my player evaluations. So if you guys want to do that, feel free to go over there. We're actually building up a really solid community, but starting out with Jaheem Johnson. And again, feel free to shout out some guys. I focus on the games that I think really matter. And, there's some games in here, of course, we're going to talk about a couple of these guys who played some, cupcake teams, but I try my best to say, hey, if you do well versus a bad team, I'm not going to boost your stock for it. But Jaheem Johnson, cornerback out of Tulane, I believe it's his first start because he only had about 100 reps last year. And this week, he ended up having an 87 defensive grade, an 88 coverage grade with a defensive stop targeted 10 times, only allowing 4 completions for 29 yards, having an interception, and some sources disagree between 3 and 4 pass breakups. Either way, this guy ended up really showing out. He's a redshirt sophomore, has ended up having a year of experience before this, as well as a small stint a year before that. So definitely a name to keep your eye out on. 6 foot 189, a really good build. Don't focus too much on the dream fits if you guys are new. They're fun more than anything, but actually I would really like Jaheem Johnson to stay in the South, Tulane obviously in New Orleans, being able to keep him there in Florida. Let's talk about Robert Henry Jr. next, running back at a UTSA. So Robert Henry went up against Texas A&M's defense, and he ran right through them. 16 carries, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And you might say, okay, that's going to be one big run. And one of them was 76 yards. But he still would end up having 15 touches or 15 carries for 101 yards, and a touchdown. That's insane. This is versus Texas A&M. And he sliced and diced. I had to give him some credit. This isn't designed to be like, oh, these guys are going to be the biggest names in the draft. No, this is designed for me to do my research and be able to find the players that I'm not necessarily watching every single day and be able to give them credit where they deserve. I ended up falling in love with a lot of players because I'm saying, hey, this guy continues to do really well. And in the back of my mind, I'm keeping that there in case I see a lot of people's draft lists without this guy. I'm like, hey, I'm going to slide him in there, or end up being like, hey, this other person saw it as well. So shout out to Robert Henry. We'll be keeping our eyes on him. Number 6 in the country right now in terms of rushing yards. Jonah Coleman's next, and getting a little bit of flack for the fact I had him at RB20. And I do advise you guys to be able to go and listen. And Jonah Coleman ended up actually kind of reverberating this or repeating it. And that is that Jonah Coleman was kind of out of shape last year. And I ended up saying, I think he's going to rise up. I'm excited to see him in his final form. And it looks like he is back to being an explosive beast. I almost didn't put him on this into the superstars of the week rather than the stars of the week. But Jonah Coleman ended up having 24 carries for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with 1 reception on 2 targets for 22 yards. So grand total, 25 touches for 199 yards and 2 touchdowns. Here's my one big issue. He has 1 recorded missed tackle forced. So I know that he's a bowling ball, has great contact balance, but I do want to see the missed tackles forced to go up. Not many running backs survive in the NFL if you can't make a guy miss. Again, really good production. Good to see him a lot more explosive than he was last year, where he himself was saying, I need to be more in shape. I'm getting more in shape. And it looks like he's done that. So I'm always rooting for the guy. Good to see him there at the top. I still think that he's going to need to continue to be more elusive. I believe he had a sub 40 elusiveness rating. Ruben Bain Jr. went off last night. This is going to be obviously a series I do every single week, and Ruben Bain's been featured on this already multiple times. I love Ruben Bain. I think this guy's an absolute savage. He's my edge 1 coming into the year. Technically edge 2 behind Malachi Lawrence. Obviously, UCF did not play anybody worth studying this week. We'll see how that ends up turning out when he does play somebody that's actually worth talking about. But Ruben Bain played against some top-end offensive tackles in Emil Wagner, who we'll talk about later, as well as Anthony Knapp, and both of them got absolutely annihilated. So Ruben Bain Jr., 94 defensive grade with 4 pressures, 3 defensive stops, a forced fumble, and of course, what he was getting a lot of love for last night in pick 6, INT 2. Well, I'm sorry, not a pick 6. I apologize. I thought it was to the house. That would have been crazy, but a crazy interception return, double doink, and then he ended up catching it. So not a pick 6. That's on me. I ended up accidentally writing that down, but it was not a pick 6. Would have been crazy though, but still. Crazy job to keep the awareness there. Really good motor. So yeah, I think he's going to go in the top 5. Like just one of those players at 6'3", 275, you do not mess around with. This is somebody who is built to be a superstar. He's got healthy again. He wasn't very healthy last year, and he's looking damn good. Now, let's talk about the big story. And again, this is draft focused, but when you have someone who is just balled out to this level, I can't ignore it. And there are players on here that are redshirt sophomores and stuff, like we talked about Jaheem Johnson, who probably won't come out, who will try to continue building up that draft stock. But still, I want to be able to highlight as many players as possible. Jerron Kiawe, Saga Pulot. I suck at this. Saga Polutele. There we go. Quarterback out of Cal. True freshman. This dude's balling out. I mean, 20 completions on 30 throws, 234 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Here's the big thing. 5 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, and obviously those big-time throws are everywhere on Twitter right now. Go check it out yourself. He did a fantastic job. I mean, just unbelievable. It is sad, and it is kind of the state that we're in. He will probably not be with Cal next year, just based on that talent. There's going to be a lot of schools trying to slam as many dollars into this brother's face as possible, and deservedly so. This guy looks fantastic. Excited to see him continue to grow and develop into the player that he's going to be in a couple of years. Again, true freshman. So got to give him a shout out anyways. And then we got Alex Afari Jr., linebacker out of Kentucky. He had a 69, nice defensive grade, but he had a 90 run defense grade. You know why? He got a sack, first off, but he had 9 run stops this past week. That is ridiculous. Well done, Alex Afari. Also targeted 4 times, allowing 2 completions for 35 yards. But whenever you get 7 or more run stops, you really catch my eye. 9 is very hard to find. Not many linebackers can do that on a consistent basis. Excited to see if there's going to be some consistency there. Now let's talk about Danny Dennis Sutton, another player who we were all hoping could take that final step this year. And again, versus Nevada, but starting out the year with a 96 defensive grade, a 97 run defense grade, 4 pressures, 4 stops, and 2 forced fumbles. That's how you end up making a statement on your first game of the year in your final campaign for the NFL. Really well done. Obviously an elite physique there at 6'5", 265, and just somebody who's going to end up kicking some ass in the NFL if he can maintain at least 90% of what he did this game. But again, consistency is key. We'll see if that ends up being the case, especially at a build like that. Then, last but not least, normally I do like 3 to 5 stars. This week, so many guys I wanted to give a shout out to. So, sorry, I should have prefaced that. We got Mansour Delane. So, I'm going to take a victory lap on this one. Cornerback 1 for me coming into the year. Not many people really wanted to show some love to Mansour Delane. I don't give a fuck, because Mansour Delane went to a spot at LSU that I thought was perfect for him. And, he's looking really comfortable there. His stats from this past week: 81 defensive grade, 81 coverage grade, targeted 8 times, allowing only 1 completion for 21 yards. On top of that, he had an interception as well as 2 pass breakups. Very well done by Mansour Delane. Definitely somebody who I ended up taking a liking to after really not liking him at Virginia Tech, and I'm very happy that I did so. But let's talk about the rest of the stars of the week. Again, this is going to be a little bit more of a longer episode. There's going to be mismatches. Some guys are going to start cold, and the guys who don't end up taking advantage of them. So I do believe this list will continue to shrink as the year goes on and guys get settled. But got to give a shout out to Jordan Seaton, left tackle out of Colorado. He ended up having an 89 pass blocking grade with 0 pressures allowed. Obviously, he was a big get for Colorado as a true freshman. Now he's going to be continuing that ascension to where we're going to be talking about him in a couple years. Keldrick Falk, great way to start out going up against Baylor's offensive line, and he made him look a little silly. Ended up having a 73 defensive grade with 4 pressures and 4 stops. So that's really good balance, especially in a very big game that they won by not a very large margin. So Keldrick Falk played a big aspect in that game. Also ended up having a touchdown saving tackle. That was a super big thing for Keldrick Falk as to why I kept him on this list. Cole Wilson, got to give a shout out to Baylor. Wanted to give it to Sawyer Robertson as well, but when you are kind of racking up some good yards and like when you're from behind, I do want to give a little bit more credit to the receivers who are getting open than the quarterback if I'm having to do some cuts. So he was the last guy I cut off this list. Got to give Sawyer Robertson a shout out. Going to see both Cole Wilson and Sawyer in person this week at SMU. Super excited for that. But Cole Wilson looked dynamic. I mean, he was targeted 11 times, ended up having 8 receptions for 134 yards. Like really, really good showing, and he was dynamic. This is again against Auburn, who has a really solid secondary pipeline. So good job to Cole Wilson right there. Arvell Reese, I mean, this guy popped off. I mean, Ohio State, again, if someone didn't make this list, I'm just going to let you know right now, there's a lot of guys who I really wanted to put on here that I still didn't get a chance to. So believe me, put their names down below. Or if you really want to see the full list, and then you can end up putting some names down below that maybe I didn't get to catch, feel free to go over to the Patreon. Again, it is going to be on that sheet. But I digress. Let's get back to this. Arvell Reese went off, man. And I mean, he only had a 67 defensive grade. And again, so Keldrick Falk is in this equation as well. Whenever I see 4 pressures, 4 stops, whether that is in the combination of sacks, hurries, hits, I always want to write their name down, but not many times do I put them on this list. Now, with guys like Arvell Reese and Keldrick Falk, they made huge impactful plays. Those weren't just standard defensive stops. These are game breaking / game changing or game sealing tackles. Keldrick Falk, that touchdown saving tackle, huge. Not necessarily listed as a statistic. With Arvell Reese, I mean, he was just everywhere. I don't know why PFF gave him a 67 defensive grade, but again, I'm going to give you guys all the information I can. But again, 4 pressures, 4 stops, targeted 3 times, allowing 2 completions for 17 yards. But he was unbelievably clutch, ended up showing great athleticism, good job in man coverage as well. I mean, just somebody who I do have a lot of faith in. He caught everyone's eye, and I'm excited to see him continue to grow and develop into the player that we're going to get to see over this year. Grayson Littleton came out of nowhere this past week, defensive back out of Texas. I had to include him, again, statistically, not necessarily somebody that I would try to include on this list. He did get an 86 defensive grade, would be on the full list, but maybe not the video. But had a pressure, had a defensive stop, and was targeted 4 times for 3 completions, 14 yards, and a pass breakup. However, again, like I just talked about before with Reese and Falk, he was extremely clutch in the biggest moments. I thought he stood out as a big guy who caught my eye, and I really wanted to give him a shout. Then we have Colton Hood, someone who I was a little bit worried based on how he played at Colorado, how well he can end up, like if he was a little bit overhyped. But he ended up going to a system that he is flourished in. Good job for him. Cornerback out of Tennessee, 75 defensive grade, 83 coverage grade with a defensive stop, targeted 5 times, only allowing 1 completion for 5 yards and getting a pass breakup. Really looked his own there. I'm excited to see him continue to thrive in that system, and we'll see where he ends up going in terms of the testing and everything. But definitely somebody who looks, in my opinion, much more comfortable in his new system than he did over at Colorado, which, again, not that he was bad at Colorado, but we're talking about, how comfortable and what played to his skill set. I thought it was a lot better here at Tennessee. Kentucky ended up having an edge rusher come out of nowhere with Steven Souls Jr. with a 96 defensive grade, a 94 pass rush grade with 2 sacks, 3 defensive stops, 2 forced fumbles, and was targeted 1 time for a completion for 2 yards. How the hell did I not put this guy on my stars of the week list or superstars of the week list? I don't know. But sorry, Steven, you ended up being you got a little bit scammed here. I'm sorry, brother. You should be in the superstars of the week. I already had 8 of them. Should have been the 9th. Then I could have put Sawyer Robertson on this list. But regardless, fantastic job. I mean, 2 sacks, 3 defensive stops, 2 forced fumbles. Like, elite combination. We'll see if anything gets remotely consistent. If it does, then we're talking about a potential first rounder here. Zachariah Branch, another name that I thought didn't statistically meet some of the other guys who I think I could have put on this list, but I thought he did such a damn good job at Georgia. Showed so much more life than last year at USC. It makes me so happy. Now, he looks a lot more in his zone. And I'm talking like we'll maybe talk about Noah Thomas. We'll talk about him now because he's not on this list. I really was disappointed with his usage, and this was what I was worried about. There's so many good receivers that have a very similar role to Noah Thomas. I think he made a huge mistake. Zachariah Branch, much better move, and great job by him. Looked fluid, looked great. 3 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown with a 91 offensive grade, 90 receiving grade, and 3 missed tackles forced on the game. Really good to see Zachariah Branch in his own. Tyler McDuffie, tackle out of Marshall, ends up being the next guy on my stock up list or stars of the week. Because again, these guys are all stars because there's a lot of players who didn't make the list and those guys are stock up. Anywho, you end up going up against Georgia week 1. You're probably going to get your ass kicked. This guy ended up at left tackle, blindside tackle, 85 pass blocking grade and 0 pressures. Completely outmatched in terms of just the raw talent on paper, and this guy ends up showing up to the party and kicking some ass. I will be watching Tyler McDuffie with very much interest as the season goes on. Jeremy Bernard, got to give him a shout out as well. Wide receiver out of Alabama. Ended up being targeted 12 times for 8 receptions and 146 yards. Nice to see. I believe he's a top 10 receiver on my board, ending up doing a great job off the bat. Now let's talk about some other players here. I mean, again, also Jeremy Bernard doing that against Florida State. But this is the only other part of the stock up list. I know this is going to be a longer episode, but I really did want to, hone in on some really big players here. I do know Harold Perkins. I believe he's wearing number 7 now, but this image with number 4 was too clean for me not to reuse it. But Micah Pettis, right tackle out of Florida State. I mean, first off, this guy ended up having 0 pressures, 83 pass blocking grade versus Alabama. Fantastic. But second off, and more importantly, I believe this guy had one of the higher pancake blocks or destructive block percentages of the week. This guy did a fantastic job. Florida State really showing that they could end up being a dark horse competitor in the ACC. Wishing this was the team I got to see in person last year versus SMU, but good to see Florida State, rising up a bit. Good for them. Harold Perkins Jr. is next. Again, I'll repeat this, not statistically someone who would make it on to the video list, someone who would make it on to maybe to the sheet, but his play at the end, like the way that he ended up forcing Cade Klubnik to make an errant throw, I thought that was phenomenal. He made a super high IQ play there and ended up doing a great job. But 71 defensive grade, 3 pressures, 4 defensive stops, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 39 yards. So not a coverage win for him, but huge game-winning play, deserved to be on this list. Marcus Ratcliffe is next, defensive back out of Texas A&M. 80 defensive grade, 82 coverage grade, 3 defensive stops, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 10 yards, and 2 pass breakups. So obviously ended up assisting with one of those pass breakups. Good job for Marcus Ratcliffe, one of the dark horse DBs coming up in this class. Mario Craver, name I've never heard of, wide receiver at Texas A&M, which is also why I do this. Ended up being targeted 10 times for 8 receptions, 122 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So good job on him. Again, not necessarily playing the biggest or the best team there in UTSA, but still, you end up producing, getting multiple touchdowns. I'm going to give you credit. Justice Haynes did a great job, again, versus University of New Mexico, but 16 carries, 159 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 6 yards. So grand total 18 touches, 165 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 missed tackle forced. Like I said with Jonah Coleman, really want to see those missed tackle numbers go up because that is one of the most consistent metrics to the NFL. And again, you can produce in college. The NFL guys get a lot better at not allowing you to produce. So you just got to make your own production in the NFL. Ryan McCulloch is next. Edge rusher out of Cal. Got a couple guys out of Cal here. Got to show some love. 78 defensive grade, 6 pressures and 2 stops. One of the highest numbers of the week. And then Hezekiah Massis, cornerback out of Cal. A lot of good DBs out of Cal last year. Maybe this is the next one. 74 defensive grade, 77 coverage grade, 2 defensive stops. Targeted 8 times, only allowing 4 receptions for 29 yards, along with an interception and 2 pass breakups. So again, we will be keeping very close watch of another top-end defensive back out of Cal. Then we have John Henry Daly, defensive end out of Utah. This week had an 83 defensive grade featuring 7 pressures and 2 defensive stops. Could have ended up giving a shout out to Devin Dampier here. I think it's Dampier, it might be Dampier. I didn't watch the actual broadcast version of the game, but he looked really good. I believe he might have been from New Mexico as well. But Utah looking very, very solid. Again, not everybody can make these lists. But a name I really wanted to talk about is Drew Azopardi, right tackle out of Washington. Looked really good. A lot of pancake blocks this past week. So, ended up having an 84 pass blocking grade and 0 pressures allowed. So really good in the run game as well as proficient in the pass game. And then last but not least, in the stock ups, we have Brandon. Is it Sissy? I mean, I literally ended up watching the broadcast version, but my brain is sometimes mush when we're watching these things and trying to tweet at the same time. But he ended up having a 77 defensive grade, 2 pressures, 2 stops, 2 receptions allowed on 5 targets for 29 yards, and 3 pass breakups. Excellent job for one of the high-end defensive backs there for one of the high-end defensive back schools. Now, let's talk about some duds of the week. Sucks. We can't be all positive here. I know. I wish we were. But let's talk about Kadyn Proctor. This dude was absolute fucking ass. I mean, you guys know it. He was a top 10 tackle for me coming into the year, but I ended up making it very clear. This guy is all size. He is extremely raw. He is being overrated. Dude ended up being diced up by true freshmen. Ridiculous. 56 pass blocking grade, 6 pressures allowed. Kadyn Proctor, yeah, I don't think he's going to be coming out this year. Again, somebody who really needs to get polished. That's going to scare the shit out of NFL teams. You come into the year full off season of development, and then you get like your ass whooped by young kids. That's what happens when you go to a grown man's game. Speaking of someone who got their ass whooped randomly, Ethan Onyenawa. I mean, I was really surprised that he was used everywhere. I saw some reps at tackle, if I'm not mistaken, some reps at guard, but this guy had a 0.0 pass blocking grade on 15 reps this past week. A little bit head scratching, obviously, but transferring from Rice, going up against Texas, it happens. We'll see if that ends up trending towards something that's more positive, but he only had 15 reps on the game. Not sure if it was injury related. I did see him in, I believe, the start of the game. So, again, let me know if that was one of the reasons, but you don't get a 0 pass blocking grade for 15 whole reps if you got injured on one play. Then last but not least, let's talk about it. Arch Manning, quarterback out of Texas. Just the biggest issue with Arch was, first off, this was his first big game. Like Mississippi State, no. But, when you end up playing, how do you handle pressure? And Arch had some big moments, but he had a lot of shitty ones. First off, stat line, 17 completions, 30 throws, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 big-time throws to 2 turnover-worthy plays, which is very good. Very good ratio right there. But 9 runs as well for 39 yards and 2 missed tackles forced. So you look at the stat line, and I would never put a player with the 4-2 ratio, a big-time throw to turnover-worthy play ratio in this list. However, the misses he had, it wasn't you're making bad decisions. He was just being a fucking moron when it came to his mechanics. I mean, why he was trying to show up being like, oh, look at me, I could throw like a weird sidearm. Dude, you're shanking passes to wide open receivers on 4th fucking down. Like, in the 4th quarter especially, I mean, obviously this happened the entire game. Like, obviously there's a drag route where he throws it completely behind where the receiver has to almost make one of the most amazing one-handed catches in full stride. And of course it was a drop, but I was just like, what are you doing, Arch? He is not 5'9", 229, by the way. That is a graphical error. I forgot about that one. So that'd be funny as fuck if he was 5'9". But again, that's beside the point. We all know I'd make 1 graphical error per episode. But just consistently forgetting how to throw the football in a way that actually makes you consistent, precise, and accurate. Really, really disappointing, because one of the things that I love the most about him coming into the year is when he used perfect form, he even threw some anticipation as well. You ended up seeing some amazing dots right on the money. And then you see the ball fluttering around. You see the accuracy dipping. And it's because he continues to try to be somebody he shouldn't. And it's so weird. And I do think this is something that will polish out over time. I think he's going to get humbled by this game. But my Lord, like, you'd think that after the first few misses and where your pass is dying and ends up being lurked by Matthews, that you'd end up like it get into your head a little bit like, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should just revert to my normal mechanics because my ball is faster, it's more accurate. But no, he looked like a deer in headlights half of the time. So sucks that. Of course, yes, again, he is not 5'9", but we got the final guys, the duds of the week, or the stock down guys. Preston Stone, I mean, not many people are going to know him. He was quarterback for SMU, was supposed to be our quarterback last year. Thank God Kevin Jennings was our guy because we ended up making a very good run. However, he ended up throwing it for 36 times for 19 completions and 160 yards. Here's the big sucker. 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 0 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays. If he were not the name brand that Arch Manning was, or if he were like a bigger name, I would have put him instantly as, besides Kadyn Proctor, the biggest loser of the week. But Preston Stone scared like that. That's bad. That's really, really bad. So, definitely something he will need to continue growing and developing in. Chip Trainum is just because of the fact that this guy's bounced around to every damn team in history at this point. For Toledo, he had 14 carries for 41 yards and 0 missed tackles forced. Dylan Bell out of Georgia, he was targeted twice, caught 1 ball for 0 yards. The other pass was dropped. He had 1 carry for -6 yards. So again, very underwhelming performance in a game where, obviously Gunner ended up having some pretty big moments. Drew Shelton, also Nolan Rucci almost made this list. He did not have a good game either, but Drew Shelton, left tackle out of Penn State, a little bit scary here. 25 pass blocking grade at 3 pressures. I am notorious for having him very low as a tackle. I have him much higher as a guard. I think this ends up confirming it because Penn State played Nevada. I'll repeat that. 25 pass blocking grade versus Nevada. Now, Lyndon Cooper almost got his ass on this list. He had a 30 pass blocking grade. I don't know what the fuck happened, but the dude allowed 0 pressures. Like, he didn't lose. I don't know what PFF's trying to do, but at least with Drew Shelton, there's some statistical factor that ended up, allowing this to make more sense. Ryan Williams on top of this, obviously superstar, but 10 targets, 5 receptions, 30 yards, 3 drops. Eli Raridan, another name that almost got on this list, but he had 91 yards, 3 drops as well. Raridan was my last guy I cut from the list. Cade Klubnik, next. And it sucks to say this, but I mean, dude looked really, really panicked, and he did not take that step forward. Again, statistically, not bad. 19 throws, 38 completions. So again, 50%. Really do want that to be better. 230 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. 1 big-time throw, 1 turnover-worthy play, 7 carries for 22 yards, and 1 missed tackle forced. Again, not the biggest thing, not the worst game in the entire world, but in a game where he really could have solidified himself as a top option, gave a lot of people reason to question how much they could trust him. Blake Miller is next. Also, Tristan Lee technically had a worse grade with 2 pressures, but Blake Miller is the one getting a lot more hype right now. I do think people are coming to their senses. I did not like Blake Miller based on his Texas performance primarily. And this week he ended up allowing 3 pressures and had a 67 pass blocking grade. Obviously not very good in a week that you end up losing by a very narrow margin. Nico Iamaleava pretty much lost everyone's faith in him again. He ended up having 11 completions on 22 throws. Not good. 50% completion percentage for only 136 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but 0 big-time throws, also 0 turnover-worthy plays. 9 carries for 75 yards with 4 missed tackles forced is great, but he lost 43-10. That is just not good. And someone who I actually really liked out of Cal last year, who I think Cal would love to have right now, or at least Javian would love to be at Cal right now with obviously their superstar true freshman quarterback. But Javian Thomas, running back out of UCLA, had 7 carries for 17 yards and only 2 missed tackles forced. Good to see the missed tackles forced at an at least acceptable rate, but 17 yards, not going to cut it. Especially when your team's getting their ass whooped. You need to be able to make up the ground. And Emil Wagner, last but not least, ended up having a 38 pass blocking grade with 4 pressures allowed. Literally ended up being put into the little spin cycle there by Ruben Bain. Just not a good week for him. Anthony Knapp as well had an even worse grade, but Emil Wagner, a little bit more of the focus because some people had him as first round grade. But I know this video is not going to do too well. I wanted to still bring it out for you guys because I know that I have a cult following for this episode or for this series. So I love you guys. I want to put in the effort. Also helps me out with my evaluation. So I'm glad that we get to work together and have a good time. Thank you again so much for watching, showing the love you always do. I'll see you later. Peace.